is innovation. Innovation is the engine that transforms ideas into value both inside and outside the company. And with value, we understand something that generates positive results either in a company or market. The main objective of innovation is to increase the productivity and competitiveness of the company, and it should be seen represented as an increase of profits in a business. There are different ways to create value in a company. It could be with a new product, a new process, or a new way of doing things. To do this, we need to perform a creative process that helps us to identify both business opportunities and the needs of our customers. Thus, exploring the environment becomes the generation of new products and services through a creative process. It is important to note that creativity is not the same as innovation. Innovation means to commercialize that creativity in order to create value. There are many ways and different processes to make innovation, but not all of them are good enough. That's why we wonder, should we kill innovation funnel? The innovation process is often represented through the famous funnel. There are different ways to represent it, but the philosophy is always the same. First, we purpose our challenge. Then, we generate as much ideas as possible and introduce them into the funnel. These ideas pass a series of rational filters. Some are discarded and others go ahead. At each stage, the project becomes more specific. We go from idea to concept, from concept to plan, and from plan to project. Finally, if the idea has survived to all filters, it receives real light and starts. We innovate. But although this funnel has been many years working in many companies, it seems to be more a process designed to carve the most different ideas and avoid risks than to give option to develop and improve groundbreaking ideas and transform them into innovation projects. Consequently, the funnel does not usually lead to disruptive innovation. Enclosing an idea into the funnel and bring it to light only at the end of the process does not usually encourage innovation. The funnel does not allow to get the idea out of the funnel soon, in order to test it nor fail to learn and improve. To innovate, we need a progressive model where the idea can go climbing stages to evolve in each of them. So, to move from a challenge to an innovation, we have to go two phases. First one, the creative thinking that leads from a challenge to innovation projects to explore. Second one, the management of innovation projects, which consists in implement them in order to transform some of them into innovation. Each of these two phases requires different systematics and skill. Let's start the first phase, creative thinking. The first key step in the overall success of the process is to redefine the challenge. That is, generate questions that attack the challenge from other points of view. The best way to find new answers is to ask new questions. There are techniques to help us in this task. Among the general questions, we select the most new and exciting ones. On these questions, with the help of intuitive and rational techniques, we open a phase of divergence where we postpone the judgments so as to get a lot of ideas. We started the convergence phase incorporating the judgments progressively. We avoid filters as feasibility or profitability in order to not discard from the beginning the most groundbreaking ideas. It makes no sense at this stage rule out an idea for being not feasible when we have not done anything to make it becoming. Therefore, we keep the most powerful ideas and not the most feasible ones. Then we apply to the selected ideas a policing process to achieve them, test, correct major weaknesses without losing its essence, and highlight their strengths. We end this process of convergence thinking how to sell the idea to facilitate acceptance. This is to define a test to let us test the idea. Innovation process models have many general benefits, but we want to highlight just the ones that we consider most important, such as post-development of innovations, identify changes and risks, generate ideas and also generate a space for creativity, ensure a flow of creative input, have structured procedures that enable to filter ideas, find qualified ideas, and prioritize them. They also assist disruptive factors. In general, innovation is connected with risks. Unexpected influences and disruptive factors can occur. In dynamic systems, with steadily changes conditions, it is hard to predict external impacts on companies and their innovations. Much research is speculative, and there is no guarantee of future revenues and profits. The longer the development timescale, the greater the risk the research is overtaken by competitors too. Risks can include operational and disruptive factors, can be missing experts in the company which deliver the know-how to create and implement innovation, commercial, failing to attract enough customers, financial, investing in unsuccessful innovation projects, technical, continuous technological process, temporal, too slow to adapt a trend, competition, and innovation only confers a competitive advantage if competitors are not able to replicate it in their own businesses. How to overcome risks? To reduce the risks, you consider the following: professional advice, joint ventures, licenses, grants, incremental innovation, and of course, ongoing research. Scrum model. Complicated projects can cause real problems. Organizing the teams, changes in scope, roles that are not clear. To avoid this, most of the big companies use Scrum. Let's talk about it. How does Scrum work? The main activity in a Scrum project management is the sprint. A time boxed, repeated, they usually last between 1 and 4 weeks, with the most common sprint lengths being 2 weeks. A product owner creates the product backlog, a prioritized wish list. During the sprint planning, the team selects how much to attempt to do by the end of the sprint, and it's a process of deciding how to implement it. Sprint backlog refers to a list of the tasks to complete during the sprint. The team has a set time frame, the sprint, to complete their work. They meet in a daily scrum to keep the work moving forward. Along the way, the Scrum Master keeps the team motivated and focused. At the end of the sprint, the work has to be potentially deliverable. The team conducts the sprint review on the products and the retrospectives on the process. To give an example of the big companies that use Scrum, we can mention about Alan Atlas, who was the first full-time Agile trainer in Amazon. He rearranged the standards of Scrum in the Amazon concepts. Alan Atlas clarifies the success of the teams that perform in Scrum for Amazon. Before using it, the teams were not even able to deliver the project before 8 months. But now, for sure, the process is done in a month later than the team received it, end of the sprint. After the team had adopted to Scrum, they are asked to implement the entire list of random features. They arranged their customers into a customer council, and it let them decide each month what they will work on. There is no doubt about that Scrum helped them be more successful and satisfied professionally. Design thinking model. Design thinking gives companies an enhanced capability to discover new opportunities. It is a relatively new way to structure processes and offered much space for being creative. Efficiency at the end of the funnel and creative ideas are encouraged. It is important to be visual and to encourage wild ideas. Judgment has always been deferred. Many big companies use design thinking to structure their innovation process, such as Apple, Deutsche Bank, etc. And now, for you to structure future innovation processes, here are the different steps you need to consider by applying design thinking. The first step is to understand the occurring problem within the innovation process. It leads to the choice of an appropriate question and defines needs and challenges. In the second step, an intensive research and field observation takes place in order to gain important insights. Next, the observations are linked here to the single prototypical customers of the company. His needs are noted and questions are formulated. The next step is all about finding ideas. Brainstorming helps to develop and visualize different concepts. Afterward, one needs to test and to visualize the ideas. First prototypes are developed and tested on the target group. Finally, there is the test and improve phase. Based on the insights gained on the prototypes, the concept gets improved until an optimal product is developed. This is our comparison about our two models, design thinking and Scrum. Design thinking is a method to generate and aggregate ideas. It's good for ideation, more creative. It's customer-oriented and humor-centered, and it is in several industries, intersectoral. Scrum is product vision and backlog, mainly software industry. It's more linear, and it's good for growing and execution. What about the future? It is important to look at the future of innovation and to be prepared for potential changes. But will there be a change in innovation processes? Not really. Actually, just in the execution and project management. The general phases will stay the same. There will always be a fuzzy front end. Every process starts with an idea. In future, there will be more effort on the ideation. The big change doesn't lie in the process, but in the mindset, functioning, and culture, how we behave, think, and work. Companies will put more effort in cross-linking when managing future innovation processes. Innovation processes are more and more international interconnected. Interconnection is the base for interactive value-added processes, the open innovations. Innovative potential is outside of the company and present in communication. Creative development processes will be outsourced and ideas will be found automatically via internet. Society will become an open source society. That leads to open innovation. There are collaborative cooperations between employees and external knowledge carriers, as for example experts, innovative clients, suppliers, and so on, takes place. Own know-how and external knowledge gets combined. Design thinking is an optimal model. It is based on the assumption the problems can be solved easier when people having know-how in different disciplines work together.